Let's start it, dude. Let's get the real deal going. The AETV Live podcast broadcast, episode 7, I believe it is.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Lucky number 11.
Lucky number 11. Right. And I'm going to have Chris and Phil are going to be carrying major loads on this episode because we're going to talk about ayahuasca and probably a little bit DMT and psychedelics, I think, in there too.
In general, yeah.
Sure.
And I don't have, you guys got a lot more experience with that than me. I'm going to leave this playing low in the background. So what I thought we would just do, and what takes however long it takes, it'll be a nice kind of change of pace from our like current events style. I feel like this episode has a chance to be a little more lasting, you know, because it won't matter when you check in. We're not talking about election, media, nonsense, stocks, whatever. Just talking about something that is and experiences, and that's kind of timeless, you know? Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that flows compared to sort of the normal, like, let's hit the current events. What do we think about this? You know, it'll be good. So I thought I would mostly just going to be me getting you guys' perspectives. You can tell it any way you want. What I got laid out is that you can say whatever you want for your intro, and then I figure we'll like walk through kind of what was your, this is how I envision it. What was your before? What was your during, as in what was your experience specifically with ayahuasca? Mm-hmm. We can weave in any other experiences you might have had that you think are relevant. What was it like after? And then what is it like present day? Like, not how did it change your physiology, or maybe it did, but like what lessons did you take away? How do you view your old self? You know, so we could just sort of like walk through the stages, like what led you to ayahuasca? Sure. How'd you end up there?
Sure.
What was the experience like? How was sort of the immediate after a little while? And then like, how did it end you up where you are in the current time? I thought that would be a pretty good format.
Yeah.
And I'll let you guys, let me know what you think about that. And then we can kind of just roll off the cuff into it. You like the format? You think that's good?
Yeah.
Good
like
way to talk about it? And y'all can just go back and forth and relate your experiences. I'll just lay mine out there. I haven't really done psychedelics. I've done like a low dose of mushroom and low dose of DMT. So I'm kind of on that train. I understand the feeling of it. But I haven't had the full trip experience. So I'm kind of just a passenger on this experience. You guys have definitely probably gone deeper than I have. So it's like I can relate on the surface, and then that's where it kind of drops off for me, you know?
Yeah.
So that being said, how do you get to like drinking the ayahuasca? Like what leads up to that point where you're like, well, here I am and here it is, and it down the hatch?
Starts for a question with me. I mean, with any psychedelic or any experience, I just have a question about life and about myself. I mean, that's how I got to ayahuasca. I mean, Phil's experience may be different, but for me, it just manifested as a desire and a longing to know more about who I was, my place in life, where was my life going, where did I come from, how did I end up where I was? Like, that was a big thing for me, was really a lot of just unhappiness with my life is what I experienced. And just kind of wondering, like, how could I rebuild? And I think I got to a point in my life where I like hit some type of wall, got stuck, and I guess you could call that like a depression or a deep sadness. I just kind of hit this moment in life where I was like, dude, something has to give. Like, I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place right now, and nothing's really budging. Like, my attitude on life isn't changing. Like, I've got a good career. I got a roof over my head. I got food in my belly. You know, it's like all the basic needs were met, but I still didn't feel fulfilled and feel deeply connected and rooted in life. You know, I felt
it's a totally relatable problem. I felt
the farthest from it really is like, I mean, I was like,
disconnected?
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Majorly disconnected from life, even though I had like, I mean, even Peterson talks about like, make sure you have friends, make sure you have a family you can communicate with. And I had all those things, and I still just felt like, dude, like something is wrong with me. Like something has to give. And so that kind of started my journey down the pathway towards ayahuasca, you know, and ayahuasca came a lot later in my psychedelic adventures for sure. But
you see that as the catalyst, like the spark.
definitely,
You trace it all the way back.
Definitely.
You're like, that's when I knew I had to seek something out.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Like, I mean, just like
Find
even going to you guys'
somewhere else.
house and having conversations late at night about
Sure, had
life and
plenty of
philosophy and self-growth and like, what are we trying to do? And we're having these good conversations. And I talked to Phil a lot about it too, because I think he had some experiences before I did. And so it's like, it piqued my interest. I'm like, whoa, dude, like, what have you experienced? Like, and I felt that gave me life. And so in some ways it was like my orienting reflex was tuned off to all these different things. And then we would have these certain conversations about psychedelics and about the experience that you might have. And then of course I had heard stories from maybe videos or podcasts, you know, stuff I was listening
Rogan's
to.
talking about it.
Sure.
He talks
Yeah.
about it a
Yeah.
lot.
And so, and I would feel this thing within me kind of enliven and wake up. And so when you're feeling depressed and down in the dumps and you find one thing that like feels good and wakes you up, it's like, dude, I better start like paying attention to that. And so I think that's what set me down the pathway towards ayahuasca.
I mean, I had several things that I wanted to work on, and I would see TV shows like Weeds, and they would make
bits and pieces, but
they would. Yeah, I mean, like I didn't.
I haven't
she
watched it,
like
really.
moved to Mexico or some shit one of the seasons,
the
and
lady
that was,
becomes a dealer, right?
that was
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
a dealer, but she got enterprising and she expanded her business. But then like there was a shakeup in one of the seasons, and she had to like move to Mexico or some shit. And that was the last season I had saw. But she had did ayahuasca and had it had
In Weeds, really?
in Weeds.
Whoa.
But it had permanently fucked her up. Like she was hallucinating like an image of a girl or some shit like after that. I'm like, I had literally never heard of lasting like damage.
Yeah,
like,
neither. That sounds like a Hollywood type
Sure.
thing
It
where
is
they're
Hollywood.
trying to scare
It is
you.
like-
or
it
they're
adds to the
"Oh,"
drama.
You know,
it just made me like not want to watch it.
like the whole
anymore.
acid flashback thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, now that I'm an adult, I'm like, dude, that was full on bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even a real thing. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you
Okay.
might get tinges of an experience. I've had dreams sometimes where I'm like, I'm in the dream world and then I'm on the cusp of having a trip, but like I've never really gone into it, but not in the way.
What about smoking DMT while in your dream?
I've done that, I think like 2 times. Yeah. I'll go into my dream world and there will be like a pipe or something there. And I'm like, what is this? You know? And then you go into it and it's like, and then I'll wake up and I'm like, wait a minute. Did I just have like an experience or something?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
So if you could call that
That's
a
kinda
flashback,
cool.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they
But
were
it's-
always described to me as like
That's happening in your
negative.
dream.
Yeah.
You're not
yeah.
sitting there and something triggers you
Yeah,
your consciousness to a flashback.
It's not like I'm
Yeah.
driving down the fucking interstate and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, an acid flashback.
Yeah.
Like freaking out. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it doesn't work like that.
No.
way.
Okay.
But so the weeds thing, she's
Yeah,
a
go
Yeah,
on,
so
woman.
she's permanently
Take us on the
damaged. She
journey.
like constantly sees like this little girl somewhere, and it's like a full on hallucination. And but the whole introduction to ayahuasca, like I had learned about ayahuasca before. Like one of my dear friends, Isabella Stoloff, she helped me to get out of the super Christian, like almost like borderline cult, you
Right.
know, just to get out of it. And she helped me with that. And, but she goes to Peru like yearly, biannually, like on the regular basis
to have an experience.
to have an experience
Okay.
and to bring people with her to have an experience. And then of course they would see like Machu Picchu and all this stuff, you know.
Oh,
So
that's
she-
cool.
So she would take them on the whole trip, you know, like go into the jungle and experience ayahuasca, then like let's go hike Machu Picchu, and then like experience some like Peruvian food, local Peruvian food, and all that kind of stuff. So, But I never actually got to go with her because it was like $2,000 to $3,000 whenever I was like broke.
You're like, bro, I just gave all my money to the church.
I just gave all my money to
what do
church.
you
I don't have
want?
any money to do this, you know.
Yeah.
So it was years before I had even actually got to participate in ayahuasca. But
you were already interested all the way back then from
years.
Because I remember those
years,
days.
years
That's
and years
way
ago.
back in the day.
Way back in the day, I was super interested
California.
in it.
Wow.
And then I guess I had watched videos too. I mean, like, but in the weeds, they were saying it's 20 years of psychotherapy and then a couple of hours or a session.
I still believe that.
Right.
I mean, even mushrooms to me is like a year's worth of therapy in one experience, in one trip. You
Interesting.
process so much about your life in that one little experience.
For sure. I mean, that was the whole reason what drove me to want to experience it. Because I was like, man, I feel like I could attract anything in my life that I wanted. Whether it was like, I was like, okay, first thing I want to attract in my life is health. All right. Because I don't want to fucking die before Elon goes to Mars.
Right.
You know, I want to be able to witness that shit. And then
If that's real.
real. And then who knows? Maybe there's a dome where rockets like just explode on impact.
Right.
You know, who knows?
Either way, big revelation.
Either
you wanna
way,
be there for it.
Either way, Elon collides into the dome and is like, you know, what a way to go out.
Yeah.
But
It's Elon on the ship too, like first man on Mars, just boom right into the firmament, dude. Like we told you.
we told you the Bible said there was a firmament. But
Nice.
But you know, there's like things I wanted to work out, and even still after having non-psychedelic experiences with Isabella, and she just like helped me to get my shit together.
Was she a shaman?
She's a Peruvian trained shaman.
Wow.
Did we hear excuse the pans on the mic? There might be cookies and pot pie.
Hey,
after this podcast,
dude, that is exciting.
I don't know if the mic picked that up or not, but
It could have.
So that was the shaman lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Wow, that's
I
cool.
remember her when we lived together. You telling me about your dealings with her a little bit.
How did you meet her?
So
How
she
did
kind of set you on the path.
Yeah.
I was
In a
looking.
way.
All right, so I had experienced some trauma in my childhood that was cropping up during my meditation.
Okay.
So whenever I'd meditate, this like trauma from like my 9-year-old self would appear.
Okay.
And I'm like, why is this continuing to come up in my meditation of trying to not think any thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
So my subconscious is like, bloop, and like bubbles that shit up. And then I'm like, well, maybe this is something I should address. So it was probably 4 years after that I had started a meditation practice to where I was like, I should probably seek some help out. And then I had went to a psychiatrist who was in the church, and he was like, this is beyond what I would generally help with.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And I would refer you to someone else. They have, you know, I'm like, dude, I have literally no money, and like,
Yeah.
I was hoping you would be able to help me. And he's like, well, they have sliding scales and all this stuff, and so I didn't really find anything affordable. And so I was like, what's alternative? And it was like Orange County Healing Center. I was like, oh, what's this about?
Mm-hmm.
And this is Peruvian shaman lady who's like, you know, helping people with their past trauma and you know, all that stuff.
Wow.
And so within like a few sessions, it was like intense revelation of like
Mm-hmm.
all the control I had been under.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was intense.
Yeah.
It was a very intense.
Okay. Now take me forward on the timeline,
Mm-hmm.
and let's go. So that's the genesis. Those are like the genesis events.
Sure.
So let's talk about, well, lay it out however you want, but when did it start to become that I'm going to do ayahuasca, where you were like, let me start setting this up? Like, what was the mindset? How did that come about? Like, yeah, obviously you don't have to reveal the details of like, I went here, I paid this guy, you know, but like, so we have the like early genesis, you know, where you feel like the itch came from, where you're like, there's something different here. I'm going to look more into this. Yeah. When did it become more like, I'm going to set this up and start doing it? Like, how are you feeling? What led you to going forward and like booking the experience?
Well, I think it came back to, I started dating Lacey, and then she's big on goals and stuff. And then at the time I was starting to date Lacey, I was like, I mean, I was big on goals, but I was just big on goals retaining up here, just in my mind.
Right.
And yeah, I would get some shit accomplished, but not like if I had a schedule, you know?
Gotcha.
So she was all about putting it on paper. Like, what do you want to accomplish in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4,
I like that.
you know? And I'm like, well, I want to have in this year, I don't know, it was like 2019 or something. I was like, I've been talking about going on ayahuasca experience and I have not yet. And I want to go. I've been talking the talk. I've never gone.
That's awesome.
And then she's like,
I love moments like that, dude.
and she's like, well, maybe I should go with you. And I was like, okay, let's do
Lacey went with you?
Yeah, Lacey went with me.
Right. I forgot that part of it.
She
Yeah.
participated too?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I love those moments though, where you're like, there's that thing that's nagging you, and you're
Yeah.
like, why have I been like looking into this for years,
Yeah.
thinking about it, pondering it, like,
Yep.
why do I keep coming back to this thing? Why can't I just go ahead and admit that there's something there and
Yeah.
have a go at it? Like, well beyond, psychedelics, or I mean, it can be so many things. It doesn't have anything to do with, even finding yourself, but
Yeah.
it's just those things in your mind in life where you're like, who knows what you might be like. You might just read about cheeses all the time online. It's like,
Jesus.
you ever going to order a cheese and start trying some, or are you just
Yeah.
going to
Yep.
want to know a bunch of knowledge about it?
Yep.
So that's interesting that it was finally just like, let's put it on the schedule, man.
Put it on the
It's
schedule.
time to
Yeah.
do this. I'm tired of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's 2019. That's like relatively recent.
Yeah.
So was yours before 2019, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
I thought so.
Yeah, 2016 going into 2017.
Yep.
I did a New Year's thing because I was into the symbolism of bringing in the new year, and new me was kind of my thinking on it, And I think it worked for me.
2017.
Yeah, it was like 2017. It's like, cool, dude. I've got to make some changes in my life, kind of thing. And so yeah, it was a little earlier. But my experience, it was.
What made you put it on the books? I mean, it was a New Year's thing, so it's kind of the same as Phil.
Well,
You
I
were
was
just
doing
like,
a lot of
screw it.
research, really. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I was already making some progression with, like, say, working out, like, my issues or whatever you want to call them, trauma. I don't know. I mean, my stuff, I feel, is more so just, like, psychological issues, like negative self-talk, like
Yeah.
putting myself down, you're not good enough, that type of stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
and I don't know where that comes from or
Yeah.
came from.
Yeah.
But I just started watching a lot of videos, and then I was reading about it. I mean, I was reading like the technical stuff about it, like what is a mono amino oxidase inhibitor, whatever. I can't even know if that's the right phrase, but like,
Right.
I was like,
Right.
what is that? What happens in your gut? I was like, okay. Then I read Rick Strassman's book, The Spirit Molecule, I think it's called The Spirit Molecule, because
Yeah.
they made the documentary on it too. And so I read his book, and so I'm reading all these case studies of these people who've had these experiences. So I was like reading about DMT, learning about that, and then I was like, whoa, this plant medicine, ayahuasca, is the same active ingredient, and these people in Central and South America like say that it's healing and that it can make you better. Like when you're laid low, it can really bring you out of that stuff.
And it's and correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I haven't done the levels of like research you guys have done on it, but it's like a cultural phenomenon for them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like that's what their whole culture is based on, but for them, they're pulling it from nature, making this tea.
It's more normal for them
it's
for
more
sure
normal.
than it is
it's
for
an experience. It's almost like
kids
a
do it and shit.
maybe like a coming of age type thing.
Absolutely,
it's more
yeah.
Versus here, you might think of like DMT, which is basically similar to drinking ayahuasca as far as the it being metabolized and giving you a trip. But you might think of that as like, what shady drug dealer am I going to buy it from, and like where am I going to smoke it at, and all
Right.
this stuff. And it's like, it's a much different experience. The idea
Yeah.
of like having a shaman being guided,
Yeah.
we'll bring up the stuff you guys were showing me before the podcast, the Peruvian Icarus.
Icarus, yeah.
Icarus. We'll bring that up too when we get. I'm saving it for when we get to the during. Okay, it's going to be the background for you to recall your experience. But
I think it's more of a
more accepted
religious
there.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean,
So-
or what spiritual, religious, whatever you want to call it.
It's-
It just has norms around it where it's cultural, it's accepted. It's like, this is what you do to come of age and to process. This is how you get in contact with your earth-bounded, grounded self, like your incarnation on this planet, whatever that means. Like, this is how you
You're about
get
to
in
get tuned
contact
in
with it. Yeah,
to
yeah.
Primal Zero is what we used to.
Absolutely.
Remember,
Yeah.
we would
Which is
just talk
genius.
deep into the night about how do you get to Primal
Get
Zero?
back.
Like,
Yeah,
what is
absolutely.
the core of your
I mean,
existence that you can possibly experience?
For me, on my pathway, having those conversations, like I've written specifically about Primal Zero and like what
Right.
would it feel like to get back there? Because to me, that is unwinding all your trauma. That is unwinding your negative thought patterns and pulling yourself out of that headspace, that physical space, and then putting yourself somewhere different, which would be Primal Zero. Yeah. So for me, I started researching, wanted to learn more about it. What is it going to do to my body? What can I expect? And then I started thinking like, well, what's the easiest way for me to access it? So I just kind of started tinkering around and seeing like, what is it legal? Like, how can I approach it? Do I have to go to Central America? Do I have to go to South America? And I probably researched for, a long time, but once I started like really researching a facility to go to, I was like, all right, I'm in. Like, I'm gonna do it. Like, I need to have this experience. Like, I've watched enough videos. I understand like what to expect on some level,
Right.
and that I could potentially heal from this, whatever that means. And so that for me was like, boom, all right, catalyst, let's go ahead and book it. Like, pay the money, follow the diet, like prepare yourself, like get yourself in the right headspace.
What's the preparation like? Like, you're
it's
committed. What's the
very
diet?
vegetarian.
Yeah. Yep.
Is it light? Are you fasting? Are you
No,
eating?
I mean, you're eating, but I mean, like, just some people are like, you can eat some chicken, but like
Yeah.
no red meat.
That's
no.
what I've read. No red meat.
What's the
no
idea
cheese.
behind it? Because the way the tea or whatever interacts in your
there's
gut, or
there's like
absorption?
Imagine there's like the dark side of the force, and then there's the light side of the force. The light side of
Yeah.
the force is DMT.
Hammer this thing right here is in the dead center.
Yeah, dead center.
Nice.
So like,
I hear you so clearly.
So the light side of the force is the DMT,
Okay.
and the dark side of the force is this like death molecule.
There are certain chemical reactions with ayahuasca or DMT, whatever active ingredient, at least that I read, that was like, you don't want to mix these two things. There were certain, I want to say there was 2 foods. I don't remember what they were, but it was like, do not eat these before, 72 hours before your experiment.
Interesting.
Or experience rather.
And did they have any idea on like why? Because you level of sickness.
Yeah,
have a
I
bad
don't know.
trip?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe some reaction. Like,
Right.
definitely you don't want to be taking SSRIs, stuff like that. Anything
yeah,
that
for
is
sure.
going to mess with your, I know that's not necessarily food related, but it is something you ingest that it's affecting your brain chemistry. So it's
Okay.
like, you don't want these conflicting things in your brain. You kind of like,
That makes sense.
like if you were taking Xanax regularly, you would definitely detox from the benzo before you took ayahuasca. And I think there's like no-nos with that
Yeah.
type of stuff. I don't know if it's fatal, but it's definitely a thing where it's like, all right, dude, you don't want to mix these two. It's not going to be
Okay.
good for you. Yeah.
What do you got? What's the death molecule?
Yeah, it's like, gosh, I can't even. It's associated with like avocados and like old ass bananas.
Oh, I did read that. You don't don't eat over ripened avocados
Yeah,
before your
you can't.
ayahuasca experience. Okay. That is,
Interesting.
you
Yeah.
saying that triggered a memory.
Avocados, like even old ass bananas. Like there's like this death molecule that like accompanies like fresh avocado. Probably okay. It's not going to affect your ayahuasca experience, but like if you're ingesting some of this stuff, it's going to like give you like some
And
bad.
I think it's also just to prep yourself, to put yourself in the right state of mind about the potentially life-changing experience you're about to have. So if you go ahead and kind of set some patterns in motion in your mentality and in your behavior of like, hey, I'm going to make some changes. So leading up to your experience, you're kind of making an agreement with your psyche of like, hey, I'm going to make these changes. I'm not going to eat these foods right now, or I'm going to sleep better. I'm going to try and be well rested for this experience.
Yeah.
So you're already making an agreement with yourself that says, I want to heal. I want to get better from whatever it is. Because to me, ayahuasca is not a recreational thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna be.
It's not a party
necessarily
drug, exactly.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, you're not going into it like, dude, let's all do ayahuasca. It'll be so much fun.
I've actually-
it's like, yeah, good luck, dude. You'll be vomiting in
Yeah.
the backyard and shitting your pants.
Oh, yeah.
And I've tried to avoid. This is more of a side note for. I want to stay on the flow of the progression of the events, but it's a little bit of a side note. It's an interesting discussion, but I've been trying to avoid even really using the word drug because I'm okay with calling it that, but I don't want to call it with the connotation of like drug user connotation.
Right.
And I just don't view things that way. People might view things that way in different walks of life, and that's okay. I'm not
Yeah.
here to judge what people have and like haven't tried, ingested, journeys they've been on, whatever. I don't do cocaine, never have, but I'm not gonna like damn someone because they did. But yeah, I almost see psychedelics, and that's why I just usually try to call them psychedelics because I just see them in a completely different category than like your average like pot smoker, chill out type person versus your like cocaine party guy versus your I'll do anything person. You know, psychedelics are in their own, and that's why I thought this would be interesting anyways, because we're more, as much as we goof around, like we're more, you can just hear even what you guys have said for your prep. It's been all serious things that were like, I didn't, feel centered in my life, or I felt in a depression or goals I wasn't meeting, something was off. I had trauma. It's not like, dude, I wanted to ride the wave, man. See what, Rogan was talking about with this stuff. It's not like that. And that's what makes the discussion interesting. And that's what differentiates the experience too. It's not some crazy bender you go on to have the time of your life.
Right.
You're actually seeking
Oh, absolutely.
truth. And that's what you're saying
Absolutely.
about the diet too. You're already taking it serious by changing your diet leading into it.
Yeah.
So that in the experience, you're actually seeking some answers or some revelation through the experience. You're going into it not to have a great time, but to say to yourself, I'm going to bring something back from this that helps me.
You want to come out the other end, I think is what it is.
That's the only thing that makes it interesting to me personally at all, is that like if it was just a trip out through the universe and come back, I mean, that does sound kind of cool, but that's not going to push me over the edge. But if it was to go and like, I know people have said about doing mushrooms, similar things like, dude, it reset me, emotionally. It let all this stuff out. And I was, I mean, now you're talking about something that, what's the difference between that and an SSRI that mellows you out? And you're like, I can finally take on the world because I don't feel so anxious. It's like, well, what's the difference then? So I've tried to avoid like just nailing it as like, so you guys do drugs or what? You know what I mean? Because it's just not that at all.
Right. Well, drugs has a negative connotation. And it's like, dude, it's all chemicals. It doesn't matter what you take. This is chemical. This is a molecular structure right here that you're ingesting. And same thing in
how do they make
steak
it fizzy,
that you
though,
eat. That's carbonation, right? The carbon. What do you? So what's the molecular structure there?
CO2.
There you go. So it's just all. It's all chemicals.
Carbon dioxide. Yeah, it is. It is all chemicals. Exactly. And I guess that makes sense then. That's why your food that you're eating is being ingested and absorbed into your intestines, just like this tea is going to be. And hey, dude, they're the ones with the history and the culture. If they say don't eat some foods, don't eat the foods.
Exactly.
And that's, again, that kind of goes back to the thing. It's like, that's what makes it interesting. It's like you take it seriously and you do what sort of what they ask, what they instruct.
For sure.
And you trust that their knowledge and how many times they've been through it are going to guide you through it in the same way. That if you don't try to be special snowflake and like, well, I need this or I need to alter this because I got to have that. Like, it's like, no, man, you're either committed to the process
exactly,
or you're not.
You don't get
and even that's a life
to
lesson.
do that. I mean, you can set an intention, but it's like, at least in my experience, like Mother Ayahuasca, like whatever she is, just sits you down in a chair and is like, listen, I don't care what you have to say or what you want to do. I'm just going to show you what you need to hear and what you need to see. Like, you're not going to be able to steer this. You're not going to be able to tell me anything. You're just going to sit here and listen.
And experience, yeah.
Yeah, exactly like you guys are saying. It's like, it's a process. You commit to the process. And like, I mean, just going back to the chemical thing briefly, it's like what immediately popped into my head is, have Hippocrates, he says, "Thy food is thy medicine," like the guy from the Hippocratic Oath, whatever,
Right.
like father of modern medicine, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, thy food is thy medicine. So it's like all food you ingest is just
Right.
a chemical. It's a molecular structure that is going to affect your mood. We all know when we're grumpy because we're hungry, or we first wake up, we crave caffeine.
Right.
So all those things, it's like, dude, the chemical is just going to affect you in different ways. It doesn't matter what you eat, whether it's ayahuasca or a hamburger. Like, it's going to have a
That's a great
effect on
episode
you.
right there, man. That's a whole nother episode. It's just like talking about food and
Yeah.
like, your take on it, why you eat what you eat, and what you've learned about it.
For sure.
Tell me where this takes you.
I'll go ahead and just close my eyes.
I thought that was one of us whistling.
That's
For
me.
real.
Close your eyes.
Let's just listen to about a minute of this. I'm convinced that what lies at the center of the universe is rhythm. I mean, I don't know how much
agree.
deeper beneath the core you can go that's
I
not
agree.
just like pattern and repetition and melody. It's just
That was actually
that's why I love music.
A part of my ayahuasca experience. One of my takeaways is that life is entirely musical and rhythm based. Even our whole lives, our whole manifestation, even as material life forms, or what, and I can't even begin to explain that.
Unwrap
but
that,
it was
yeah.
but it was an intuition
Same.
or an understanding that was handed down and kind of like shown to me is like, look, everything is rhythmic, all of it. It's all musical.
So take us. No, go ahead, Phil. And
I mean, like Nikola Tesla would say, he's like, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what
and
music
even that
is.
music right there, I close my eyes and immediately I'm taken to a place where I'm sitting by a campfire with other people and there's someone just kind of dancing around, generating that stomp with the earth, and you feel that vibration and you feel that warmth and you feel their human spirit kind of around you, and it's like, dude, that's what it's about, bringing people into the fold, like talking about creating a community and being together with people. Like, a campfire is it, dude. Like, your ancestors, that's what they did. It's tribal.
Primal.
Like, they went out somewhere in the woods and they set the dirt on fire and sat around it and chilled out and like shared stories and music and dancing. So, I mean, where does it take you, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes me to a good place. I mean, my first experience was, I was researching and I was doing all the things. I was like, do I have to go to Peru to experience this? And I found something very affordable in Kentucky. And I went there, and it was a very like.
Did you go see Steve?
No.
Okay. But you went to Kentucky?
Yeah, I went to Kentucky.
Okay, because that's where I went as well.
Yeah, you went to the one in the Vice documentary.
Yes, which I think you told me about that, and I had no idea that they did they did a Vice documentary on him and his wife like a couple years after I had gone, but I was like blown away. I was like, no way, dude, they did a documentary.
Yeah, it was a cool documentary. I still refer people to the documentary, like, because it helps give you good perspective of what ayahuasca can do for you.
Yeah.
But they had approached the guy that I went to, and he was like, this can't.
Slide your mic down a tiny bit.
Like, he felt like it was it was taken away from the medicine and making it more about the people, and he's like, he just wanted to be more about the medicine. But I mean,
Gotcha.
So that's his perspective on it. But he had a good community. And it was a good experience. And so when I listened,
and you both did it with a group, guided group experience. I mean, you had your own,
like
obviously,
12
internal
people.
experience.
Yeah.
But you went as a we're all going to do this at the same time with one guide.
Yeah.
That's the.
Well,
All right.
there's like one like shaman per se, but there's multiple like helpers.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, that are like making sure like buckets are like emptied.
Yeah.
And they're really like taking care of you, because you might puke in a bucket, but then like, you know, maybe the smell of it is like messing with you. So they go and they clean out the bucket and they bring it back a fresh bucket.
Yeah.
Or they drop a bucket when they pick one up.
Oh,
you know.
okay. Yeah.
And so, but my first day I didn't puke at all, but my second day I was like heaving as much as I possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea it was a multi-day.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 days back to back.
So what?
That's what mine was 2 days.
So go take me through it, dude, any way you want to. I mean, what the meat and potatoes of what everybody is going to want to hear about is like, where did you go in your mind? But you can start off at any part of the, you know, I drove up down a gravel road. Like, you can start there if you want, or you can just say, man, after I drank that shit, you know, I went to the moon and here's what it was like. I mean,
Okay.
but we're in the during segment of the ayahuasca experience. So I want to know what it was like under the effects
of
of ayahuasca.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you swig it back. Immediately I was like,
Were you nervous at all?
No, not too nervous.
Okay. That's good. That's a good sign.
I felt like it was pretty low key.
You were ready.
I was ready at that point. You know, what was maybe there's a little nervousness, but
of course.
It was like, I was more like
Excited.
expecting like there to be some kind of immediate experience or whatever within the first hour. And it took a long time for me
Interesting.
to even have an experience. And then I think I went back for a second or third cup, and then, or maybe probably just a second cup actually. But then it wasn't even that intensive experience then. It was more like I had somewhat of an experience. It was almost like there's entities that were like, hey, welcome. You know, this is just orientation. We're not going to go too deeply into this night, but I just want you to
name badge on.
Yeah,
please.
here's the
Pick up
name
a Sharpie,
badge.
Write your name.
Fill this out.
And
Hello,
fill this
my name
out.
is-
This is just meet and greet right now. Tomorrow is going to be a bit more intense.
Okay.
Okay, be ready for that.
Okay.
But tonight's just going to be very calm and great. And so then I go into my second night. You know, we like, me and Lacey went and go play in some leaves and get ticks all on us and shit, and that was fun. And then later we had another back-to-back ayahuasca experience, and I think I took 3 cups. Had a bit of an experience, and then I felt at peace. I was like, okay, I got a good experience. You know,
When you say I had a bit of an experience, what,
like it was just
was
very
that?
like,
what was it a bit of?
not a lot of visuals. I did get some insights, you know, but it wasn't very intense. It was just like whatever.
Give the people at home an idea of where you're feeling it. Is it hitting you like in your body? Do you know?
I mean, yeah, there's body sensation for sure. Like you feel like electrified, and then maybe there's like,
I have felt from my limited experience, I've felt the vibration of your, almost like your body is vibrating, you know, at a frequency. You kind of, it's not eerie. I mean, excuse me. It is eerie, but it's not like you're being shocked by anything. You don't physically actually, it's not like a current's running through you, and yet you feel like that you're vibrating almost in a way.
For sure.
But I don't go much deeper than that. So there is some body high that you experience. Gotcha.
Yeah, there's some of that. And
then
that was
launch into a short, this is the second night?
Yeah, it's kind of like a short experience. It was like, okay, here's a lesson, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, great. And then like I looked over at Lacey, and then I went and laid in the middle of the floor. Mm-hmm. I was just like, kind of like feeling at peace. Like I don't have to feel any judgment about what anybody thinks about me laying on the middle of the floor.
Right.
You know, like I can just do this and it'd be okay. And because that's what I would normally do. And then I didn't care. I was like, I thought this was great. You know, I just would lay there because I was ultimately waiting for the bathroom, because there's like only one bathroom there. And so we were just kind of waiting in the line. So I'm like, shit, you're waiting in line. I'm going to wait on the floor over here. I'll meet you over there in a little bit. And then it got to my turn. And so I was waiting by the door, and I had there was like maracas and shit, and like little rattles and all kinds of things that you could pick up if you felt inspired.
Okay.
And so I felt inspired to have a little,
shaker.
Yeah,
a little shake. And then apparently the girl that was near the door, she was like, she really appreciated that. Later she told me, she was like, I really, I was going through it, and I really appreciated you guys like doing music near me. And like we were just waiting
That's
on the
cool.
bathroom,
Yeah.
with it,
Yeah.
But maybe on some subconscious level that you weren't aware of,
Yeah.
like there was something compelled you to go pick up that thing and make that noise. And
Yeah.
like you said, you weren't really thinking about it necessarily for you. You were just like, man, I feel inspired right now. But maybe there was some type of ayahuasca energy vibe going on where you're like, dude.
Maybe.
It could have been. And so I went to the bathroom, came back, and then Lacey gets up when she sees me, leaves the bathroom.
Let me interrupt you again. When you're waiting in line for the bathroom and stuff, you're still feeling like you're on something?
You still, you
But
feel
you're not
you feel like
tripping.
you'd smoked a full blunt,
Okay. So you feel super high,
super high.
but you're not like, I'm tripping,
You're
gotta
not
lay
seeing
down,
things.
because you're not kicking in that hard.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're
All
not
right.
seeing things.
All right.
You're just like you feel something, but you're like, I can stand here and wait in line for the bathroom fully in control of my body.
Gotcha.
And then I got to my turn. I went to the bathroom. Some people say you get lost in the bathroom, but it wasn't. I was fine there.
Yeah.
And then I get out, and then Lacey sees me get out of the bathroom, and so then she hugs me, and it was a very endearing hug.
Yeah.
And she's like, how was your experience? I'm like, it was good. And then she's like, are you done? I'm like, well, yeah, I think so. I had 3 cups, and I felt pretty good. She's like, well, have some soup.
Really, it
Soup.
was just more ayahuasca.
Have some soup. And then so like I was like, sure. They had these vegetarian soup ready with potatoes and stuff in it. It's so yummy.
So there really was soup.
There really was soup.
Okay.
So
How many
then-
hours in are you at this
Yeah.
point?
Oh,
from your
like 3 or
cups?
4 hours.
Okay.
3 or 4 hours in. And then so I had some soup, and it was just like, this is so delicious. I was just eating a whole big bowl of it. And then all of a sudden it was like my body got super heavy.
Uh-oh. Okay.
I got to go find my mat. This is starting to hit me again because the soup comes through your digestive tract and hits the ayahuasca that's like sitting in your digestive tract, just like sitting there for some
Time for
reason.
absorption.
And all of a sudden you're like absorbing all of it all at once. And it's like, I need to get to my mat immediately.
You start metabolizing.
Oh my God. It's a way to get it out of your system is eat some soup. And then, so then I go over to my mat and I'm like, just feeling like intense, like fractals and all this stuff just going. And then eventually,
Shaman kicks in a little bit.
and then they're like, Phil's hitting it hard. Cue the music.
Yeah.
And then like they cranked the music for me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it was just like little whisper at the time, and I was just like, da 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 da. And I'm just like,
No, wait, did they really?
yeah, they did.
They were
cranked-
like, oh, he's going.
he's going down.
Give him some beats.
Give him some beats.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then, so then I went in and I was just like, oh, and then like at one point I was just seeing all kinds of things. Just like, all I can know is that like I was at 2 places at once.
Okay.
I was at whatever place where I was seeing all these images, and then another place where I was conceptually aware of my body, that I knew where the trash can was and shit like that. So I was just like, okay, I'm seeing all these things, yes, but I'm also needing for my body to be able to puke into here. And so I'm not making a mess anymore.
Okay.
So I'm like, blah, and it's just, just intense.
You ate all that damn soup, dude.
Intense. Yeah, I'm like puking up all the soup.
Best soup you ever had. Too. Loving it.
Yeah, this is the best
Yeah.
soup I ever had. Just like just going in this trash can, like and then like I'm doing these like cat cow yogas. I'm like,
While you're vomiting?
yeah, while I'm vomiting, just arcing my back like a son of a bitch, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then eventually I'm like, I'm done, and then like my mat mate next to me, he's this professor from like New York, like super liberal dude who experienced a lot of stuff and like just ended up having an amazing life, but just like so interesting, just super smart dude. And he was just asking me questions. Like at one point, like we just like grabbed hands, like like victory kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I could understand him better from the physical connection of our fists.
Oh, okay. So
It
like when
was,
you touched, you had
it was
deeper
almost,
understanding.
yeah, deeper understanding what he was saying, like in his conversations. And then so I was like, well, I wanted to hold on to that. And then
Yeah.
he goes and asks me these questions like, well, where were you before Atlanta? And I had some like, I was in DC and I had some dreams that were dashed in DC. Like I was going to make so much money in the summer, you know, selling alarm systems with Cameron and Damien and everybody. And then
Start a farm.
it's, do whatever you wanted with, I mean, I was going to go, I guess, go back to California, you know, do stuff there. But, because that's where I had originally come from. I was living in California, in Orange County, and
Are you tripping still right now? Like not in this moment, but
When you're having the conversation, you're holding.
yeah. Are you seeing
no, I'm
victories?
not,
Like, are you on a
I'm
journey?
down. I'm down a
Okay.
little bit.
You were down. Okay.
Yeah, I was down a
Okay.
little
Well,
bit.
where'd the journey go?
Do you remember like what the contents? You said you were at 2 places at one time. I'm
What was the
here.
other
I can
place?
vomit. Where were you? And do you remember any of the images or what was being shown to you?
Yeah, it was like it was like an intense experience of like mysteries of the universe kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like souls come down on this grid. Like there's like this grid pattern in the sky, and then these souls are like going beep from these like XY coordinates,
Right.
beep, and like dropping into people's like bodies as they're getting pregnant. It's just like, and I'm like, I have no desire to know these things.
That
like,
reminds me of the new Pixar movie. What's the name of it? Anyway, Soul.
No idea.
I think it's called Soul, which is a great film, by the way. It, like what you just described is very similar how Pixar animated it. Like, I mean, they have this hole up in heaven, wherever, where souls are waiting to come down to Earth, and they can look in this little black hole, and then Earth is down there in space, and like once they get their purpose, they jump down in and get like blasted into a human body. It's a really cool movie. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to watch it then.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you saw the
that
grids.
grid.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw the grid, and then it was like these souls are coming down at where the XY axis meets, like at
Right.
the center is like beep, all these like
Yep, all over the grid.
It was just like some kind of like mountain valley. There's like mountains in the background and this grid over top, and then like it was like showing me like I'm feeling so many things right now. Like I will refrain from asking any more questions about the mysteries of the universe. I just want to be sober again.
Did you have that intention going into it? Like I want there are questions I need answered.
No,
or
like I
things you're
wanted
wondering about.
I wanted my money blocks to be dissolved. Like I've pretty much made the same amount of money all my life,
Right.
and I wanted to
Go to the next level.
Yeah, I want to go to the next level.
Stop
See what
being stuck.
you know. And it's only been like till recently that's actually even happened. And it's like I feel like I can attract love into my life or attract knowledge. Like if I want to know something, like something will come up in an article on Google or somebody will talk about it. Like, oh, I was just wanting to learn about that, and then like I just anything like that like manifests very quickly. But like money, like I've had some intense money blocks, and I try to like think about it. Like my parents weren't super weird with money, like, but I have had such, and I wonder if it was probably the church, because like there was some books I had been reading called "Through the Eye of a Needle," where it talks about, you know, a rich man, the likelihood of a rich man entering heaven is like is a camel
through the eye of a needle.
through the eye of a needle, yeah. And so that whole book was talking about like, you know, Paul wanted to die with no money in his pocket,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, and that's the true Christian's way is really to just
Letting go of the worldly
Let-
is the
letting-
whole summation
yeah.
of
Right.
the Christian
Until you-
let go of the
doctrine.
material.
until you die, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was
That was your main take going in, was like the money block, was like
a money block. Like why can't I make as much money as I want?
Right. Okay. So did you obviously, are you going up again on ayahuasca? Like not
I mean, I've been thinking about going.
well, no,
again.
in this journey though, are you going on another wave up high, like, or was that the end of it? You vomited up the soup. You were in two
Oh
places
man,
at once.
well, yeah, but there. I mean, there's just a lot of interplay of like dimensional realities, like
And
colliding.
you go in and out, or
No, I mean you're just simultaneously aware of your
Gotcha.
physical body, but also intensely aware of like some other place where you're learning knowledge about your past or future or whatever, or just how to be a better person. You know, just different things like that.
how are you learning? Or actually, Chris, like, bring us up to the same point in your experience as Phil is at in his story. You know what I mean? Catch us up on once you ingest and where it takes you.
So same thing, 2-day experience. First day, lighter dose, just kind of introduction. I didn't really have like a welcome committee. Like my, what would you say? My posture, or like when I entered into like my like prayer state or my like welcoming of ayahuasca was like the first night ingested. I don't remember how many cups. I just remember it tasted like muddy creek water, like just it's a brown like you've never seen, and it kind of is like milky almost, but it doesn't taste like milk. It just has like this. It's like a weird thick texture,
Cloudiness, sort of.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
feel like you're drinking something very healthy. Like it's awful.
It is kind of like that.
But
Yeah.
but you know you should drink it for your kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're like, more Ovaltine, please.
It's like
Like,
trying to slam back a green juice, and like the celery
green
is in there, and
juice.
you're like, this
Yeah,
is
or the
bad,
wheatgrass
but
or
it's supposed to
something.
be good for me.
Yeah.
And so I had ingested and laid down on the bed and just kind of quietly just closed my eyes and started practicing some breathing techniques. Not really techniques, just slowing my breathing down, just kind of listening to my body, and then started to slowly see visualizations behind my eyelids. You know, so my eyes are closed, and I saw coalescing patterns at first, like kaleidoscopic psychedelic stuff, and then all of those patterns started to have this like morphology where they turned into human heads, but they were like water falling, cascading, blending into each other. It was like some MC Escher type art where stuff goes together, but it's almost like it's an optical illusion. It's like, dude, that staircase cannot go into that, but the way it appears behind your eyelids is like it totally makes sense at the time. So my whole field of vision behind my eyelids is all these human heads kind of blurring and blending into each other, but vivid, beautiful patterns, almost like what's on the screen right now, like bright colors for sure. And and then those heads went away, and then there was a motherly figure who was like, she was like, I have you, like, you're good. And I just told her, like, I was like, well, whatever you want to teach me, go ahead and teach me. Like, I'm at your mercy. Like, I took a very much so a posture of, when life hands you more than you can bear, kneel. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna kneel. Like, you just show me. And I felt also kind of snake-like. I found that I was moving my body a lot. Like, I was getting my spinal cord into it. I was laying on my back, and I was just kind of like, it's the rhythm thing is what it is. And I remember feeling kind of like a snake, like I was slithering. And this was before I saw the faces. Like, that was kind of my build up. Like, I started breathing, then I started kind of wiggling my spine a little bit. And then I was like, whoa, I feel kind of like serpentine right now.
Yeah.
And then I started to see the patterns and the faces, and then the feminine presence kind of presented herself to me and was like, I got you. And then from there I came down because it was a lighter dose. So I chilled out, and then went into the back room, and I was like, kind of felt like Phil was saying, like, I just felt sobered up. I was like, dude, I could drive a car right now. I'm chilling. Like, I'm good. Like, whatever. So I went in the back. One of the other guys, like this guy next to me, his name was Brent. He had brought some trail mix that he had like homemade from his farm in Oregon or something like that. So I was eating some trail mix.
Was it the best trail mix you ever had?
It was so delicious, dude.
Very delicious.
And then we also rolled a blunt and smoked a blunt in the back, and like just like we're chilling, dude. It was like I had like total like family friend kind of vibes throughout my whole experience, which I think is what I needed. Like, it felt good. Not that I didn't have that, but it just made me, like Phil said, he laid in the middle of the floor and he didn't feel any judgment. He was like, dude, I'm just doing me and it don't matter. Like, so he went in the back, eating some trail mix, just having a conversation with Steve, the shaman, and Brent, smoking a blunt, just hanging out. And then by that time, you know, it's later at night. So we go to sleep, get up the next morning, go get it we had like a light breakfast. I think they provided some food. I can't remember, but so we go into the evening time, the second night, and Steve's like, all right, so the first night I'm giving you the light dose. Second night, we're going all in. I'm going to give you guys more, you know, higher potency than I gave you the first night. So I go all in, I drink the amount of cups that everybody drinks, which I don't remember the exact number. And I'm laying in bed and like nothing's really happening, you know? I feel like, I mean, I won't even call it lethargic. I felt like body high. I was like, okay, but like I just feel a little stoned right now. Like that's what I feel like. So I went and talked to Steve. I was like, dude, it's like I'm really not feeling it. You know, I've had other experiences and like, and this is supposed to be, you know, the intense one. And I was like, I'm not feeling. He's like, all right, I got you. So he goes and gets me 2 more cups. I sit there and I talk to him. We probably talk for 20 minutes or so. And he's like, are you feeling anything yet? And I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, we're just having a conversation, whatever we're talking about.
You're like the edibles guy who eats the edible and is like,
I was
chilling. Don't feel it, man. I'm going to eat another one.
Yeah, I was chilling. And so then I think he gave me another cup. And then it's a Phil situation where he was like, but it wasn't vegetable soup. He was like, here's a bag of Cheetos. Eat these Cheetos.
Jesus Christ.
It ramps up from here though. That the Cheetos were the catalyst though. Yeah. It was good. Steve was like,
Cheetos will change your life.
He was like, the Cheetos are going to, like he said, your gallbladder is holding the DMT.
Yeah.
He's like, and if you eat these Cheetos, it's a digestive thing. Like it's going to release all the DMT once you eat these Cheetos.
For sure.
I mean, I think I ate 1 or 2 Cheetos. I mean, it was quick. It was like once something got into my stomach.
The gallbladder releases when you do a heaving motion of puking.
Okay.
And so the Cheetos probably made you puke. And then so it like your body goes and puts pressure on your gallbladder, and your gallbladder goes.
So that makes sense because my stomach was bothering me, but I wasn't really fighting it, but I was like, you know what? I can just breathe calmly and sit still and I'm not going to vomit because I didn't vomit through my entire experience. So maybe that's what it was. I didn't know the heaving motion kind of initiated that release. Yeah. So I have the Cheetos sitting there, keep talking to Steve. And then it was just like, boom, like I was like looking at Steve in his eyes. And then I started to feel like I was in a movie. I started looking around and I was like, life is a movie, dude. Like this is not no, man. Like this is a movie set. Like there's cameras. This is like MTV real world shit. Like something's going on right now. And I looked at Steve in the eyes and all of a sudden his face was painted white and black, and he had feathers, and he had all these beads on, and I'm tripping. I mean, he didn't have that on. He just had normal Kentucky man clothes on, like a t-shirt and like cargo shorts or something, you know. But I'm seeing him like truly as a shaman, and I was like, I just looked at him. I was like, Steve, I was like, you got all these feathers and beads and face paint on right now, and he was like, go lay down. You need to go lay down right now. Yeah. So I got up and I went and I laid down flat on my back. And dude, it was like instantaneous. As soon as I laid down, the stomach started churning, and like the guy Brent right next to me is like, like just throwing up all in his bucket, dude. And I was like, that's cool, man. You're on your experience. But I was like, I'm not trying to vomit. Like, I'm just going to hold it in. Like, like I said, my stomach was churning. Just kept breathing. And then I did this whole like spirit fingers thing. Like I crossed my arms on my chest and I started doing like this.
Yeah.
I was like, breathing like I was in a coffin for real. And the stomach pains went away and I like soothed, and then I saw like my eyes are closed, start having the visualizations again, and I see Mother Ayahuasca, see it's like a feminine spirit, and she came to me again and just kind of said the same thing. Like, and I remember in my mind kind of kneeling for her. Like I had this like image of myself, like I was proposing or something like that, you know, but I was just kind of saying like, show me, like whatever you need to show me, please just show me. I am at your mercy. And she was like, okay. And then she kind of dissolved away. And then as she dissolved away, I was like, I still knew I was laying in the bed, but I was also having this intense visualization, like a crystal clear waking dream, like a lucid dream, I guess. And I was up in the clouds, and then I started to fall and sway left and right, really gently. And then I was looking down at the earth, and I could see all these rows of snowmen, and it was snowy. Like, you ever see like a field of trees where humans have planted trees all perfectly in order? I don't know what you call that, but the snowmen were exactly like that. They were all perfectly manicured, and it was snowy. And then I was like, I'm a snowflake. Like, that's why I'm swaying to the left and to the right. And so I'm like falling and falling and falling slowly. And then soon as I hit the earth, like I landed in between these two snowmen, and then boom, dude, hit the earth. And then this fiery, jeweled, giant, like Megatron fucking lion, like larger than life, dude, like a skyscraper size, like rockets out of the earth and like roars up to the heavens, dude. And I remember he was so like just beautiful. Like his mane was long flowing hair, but it was also on fire, and his whole face was jeweled and vibrant, and he was like ferocious and majestic. All the things you think when you see a lion, like, because people say like until you see a lion in person, you don't really understand how large of a creature they are. Like a picture doesn't do them justice. Like it's one of those things where you need a banana for scale. Like, dude, their paws are as big as our heads. Like they're fucking huge animals. Anyways, the lion roars up to the heavens and leaves a giant mountain in his wake. And it felt like that it released a lot of emotion for me. So something about the lion kind of awakening and coming out of the earth released this. I had this whole emotional release, and I'm still doing this. I mean, I'm just laying there like breathing, eyes are closed this whole time. And then, of course, I start having some tears come down. I feel it all well up. And then I'm looking up at a night sky, because I think what happened is I saw the mountain, and then I looked up because I wanted to see where the lion went. And then I'm seeing a black night sky with beautiful stars. And then I realized, I start looking around, and then I realized there's all this hay around me. And it's like, I realized that I was a baby in the manger. Like I had this feeling that I was in a womb, but also a tomb at the same time. And that idea has kind of stuck with me a lot, because that is a deeply Christian motif of like being reborn and being crucified, like that Jesus rose after 3 days is a deep, metaphor. Even just in our lives in general, like there are times in your life where certain parts of you die and then new parts of you manifest, So I'm in the manger, and then I realized that I was a baby, and so I'm laying there, and then there's these 3 people around me. And this is where the shit gets really biblical, because there's 3 people around me. One of them was Jesus, one of them was Buddha, and one of them was Krishna, which are all kind of in the similar category of savior-esque type manifestations or people, And I remember just feeling an intense love and welcoming feeling, like they wanted to nurture me and take care of me and look after me, whatever it was. And they were just kind of watching me. And I remember like Jesus looked at me, and Jesus was like, I'll wait for you for as long as it takes, like however many millions Jesus, of years. Dude. Yeah. And he was so calm and like, and then after he said that, I had this intense feeling that I was being reborn, and then reborn again, and then reborn, and then baptized and baptized and reborn and baptized. And Jesus was like, it was like he was teaching me things, and it's like my mind wasn't, like I wasn't smart enough to really get the message. Like it was such a flood of information that I couldn't quite process all of it. But I kept saying to myself and even out loud, I was like, I understand. I understand. I understand. Thank you. Thank you. I understand. You know, like I couldn't use words to speak it. It was ineffable. Like I could not, there's no way I could say it, but all I could do was in my head just be like, man, I understand, Jesus. Like, thank you so much. Because it was like he was bestowing all this knowledge, kind of similar to what you talked about, Phil. Like there was all this knowledge around me. And I, as that was happening, I remember like I really tuned into the music after that. And then once I tuned in to the music that was playing, I saw this like stream of like, it was like some Avatar type shit where it's like this beautiful, flowy, like evanescent, like bluish beam that's kind of interweaving.
Like ethereal kind of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like looking at that, and that was
Ethereal? I don't know what the word is.
Yeah, I would say ethereal. That
Okay.
just because it rolls off the tongue a little better. I'm sure you can say it the other way too. But that beam was like human consciousness linked all the way throughout history, all the way back to the beginning of time. And it was like I could reach up and pull little bits of information. It was like I was seeing a manifestation of our genetic code and who we are and how we're all interlinked and how all humans are connected and all these deep relationships that we have with each other and our family and our friends and our history, our ancestors was all interwoven into this thing. And I just remember feeling like even more love and gratitude because I was like, wow, like, thank you for trusting me with this information, you know? And I couldn't tell you what any of the information was, but in the moment I was like, wow, thank you so much for trusting me with this. Like I can, you know, I'll shoulder this burden. Like I can do this. Like I can bring this back for humanity. And then I ended up on a spaceship, and it was like a Neo situation. You know how when a Neo wakes up on the Nebuchadnezzar and he's like, where the fuck am I? You know, and like, and he realizes he's got a port on the back of his neck and all that. I had that kind of moment to where I was up on the spaceship and there was a crew of people. They were humans, and they were like, are you ready? Like, are you ready to come to this side of things? Like almost like it was the next, like it was the evolution of consciousness. It was the next gateway. It was like, okay, dude, after you, like when your body's done and it quits, like the heart stops beating, like don't worry, dude, you're just going to wake up on this spaceship and then the next journey is going to begin. Like don't even worry about it. Like we just need you to go on this mission down to earth for a little while and then you can get beamed back up here with us. And so I remember having that feeling, and I asked myself, like I had a deep, intense love for my mom, my dad, and my brother, and I thought about them, and they were like, are you ready? Are you ready to wake up on the ship? And I was like, you know, does my family get to go too? And I think the answer was a resounding no. At that time, anyways, they were kind of saying like, no, they can't come now. You know, they like their time will come, as everyone's will. And then after I had that kind of thought, I think that's what grounded me and kind of brought me back to like, oh, okay, I'm in Kentucky. Because I was like, started thinking about my family and then feeling love for them. And then that brought me back down to just, again, I felt pretty normal. Like I felt, again, like I was coming down, felt body high, but I was like, I'm good, dude. Like, I don't feel like I need to vomit. Like I am hungry. I do feel like psychically exhausted. And and then that was it for me. And so like I journaled about that, and also, something about like music too. When I was on the spaceship, that because I just remembered about the thing about rhythm and stuff. Like on the spaceship, the people on the spaceship were telling me something about how human beings camouflage themselves. Like we all camouflage ourselves to hide from who we really are, or something like that. And then that. But then that idea of camouflage tied into music somehow. It was like the rhythm that you stomp to in life, or like the beat that you stomp to, the music that you listen to, the music that appears in your head. And that was, I don't know if that was all like metaphorical or what that was, but I do remember thinking a lot about rhythm and music. And then I came down and was like, all right, cool, dude. I'm in Kentucky. I just had this experience, and I felt like ready to take on life. I mean, I just felt good. It was like initially it was just like it was euphoric, like right away. I think I was just riding the experience and like, whoa, dude, like
was yours like really that, Phil?
Good.
Euphoric, like when you came down, was it that sort of euphoria?
Yeah, I definitely felt euphoric. I mean, there's some stories that I had with my mat mate that he was like asking me about where I was before this, or where were you before DC, and it was like where were you before that? And it was like so much trauma and pain separating these cities.
Yeah,
and it was just like all of this came out of like this crying laughter. It was almost like Joker-esque out of the movie The Joker. It was just like laughing pain.
Oh,
and it was
okay.
just like it felt intensely terrible, but at the same time, it felt great that it was leaving my body, and so all I could do was cry and laugh at the same time.
Interesting.
And it was very intense.
So it felt like a reset once you came down. Like, would you guys both say that?
I felt like I was healing from the trauma of my past every time he asked me about a particular city.
So was your experience a lot tied? Because like your experience was purely like a waking dream in your head. Was yours a lot tied? What are you about to do? Go somewhere?
I gotta pee.
Okay. So your experience, like, I'm just wondering, and what I was going to ask Phil when he comes back is like, his seems like it was really tied to. Now you've revealed the camera tricks, you bastard. It seems like his was really tied to it was grounded with that other dude there, like not affecting his experience, but like somehow that was, even like you said, when they grabbed hands, it was like there was some more connection there, and it's like almost like his experience was defined by that connection, and where yours was much more of a like a waking dream, almost like a story, like you told yourself a story. And that's what I'm going to ask Phil when he comes back too. Like, plus you're a more artistic person than he is. So like the visuals and things like that are much more, probably easier for you to explain and more recognizable.
It definitely, so it was very individualized and very creative and colorful, but I also had moments where I would look over at Brent and see him vomiting. And not that, that we bumped hands or anything, but in that moment, I was like, wow, like we're both experiencing the same thing. Like this guy, he's having his own experience with what he's processing. And then, because I would come in and out of that lucid dream state, kind of like what Phil described, as I would be there, and then I would open my eyes and kind of look around, and I'm like, oh, I'm laying in a bed. I'm doing my fingers like this, like little spirit fingers, or that guy over there is doing push-ups across the room, like
who was a guy doing push-ups?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was like
intensely.
Yeah, he was fighting the experience, and that actually helped me. Like, because I was like, don't be like that guy.
I'm not that guy.
Like don't you can't fight this. Like you're not in control anymore. And
that's kind of the rule of all psychedelics too. It's like, hey man, psychedelics are about losing control. If you're gonna do it and you got control issues or you're worried about giving into the experience, then it's like probably don't come along for the ride until you're ready to let that go.
And I mean,
or
even
maybe
if you're not,
some people maybe need to be broken. Where
that
it's like
might
maybe
be
you
what you need to learn.
The experience
it
might need to force
you to surrender. And
that can
be a
too.
lot for people. I mean, I think that's what people call the ego death, is what they're experiencing is that loss of control, because your ego wants to be in control of everything. It's how you stay alive. Like it's important to have a well-rounded ego, but it does want to be in control all the time. And so I think that's the surrender part of it, is like, it's going to dissolve that whether you want it to or not. Now, it'll be easier on you if you go ahead and say like, hey, I'm willing to accept and change, and I would like to grow from this. Because I think that's what I experienced, because that's why I wasn't doing push-ups and wasn't, I don't think vomiting would have been me resisting it. But that same guy, like, he was trying to leave the building. Like, he wanted his experience to be over. Like, he wanted out. Like, he couldn't take it. And then another girl, she only did the first night. She left. She was like, I've seen enough. Like, I don't need to see anymore. Yeah. She was just there for, I think she was in school for psychiatry, and she was kind of doing her own little experiment on herself to kind of see like what it would be like. She wasn't really there. it didn't seem like she was called there because she had something she needed to deal with. She was just kind of like, I just want to see what it'll do. And then that first night was enough for her to be like, yeah, I'm out. I don't need to see any more.
I can respect that, because when I tried DMT, the one and only time I ever tried that, I mean, I certainly was. It was like we're gonna do a little bit, and then we're gonna see if you want to go to the next level type of experience. And I did a little bit, and I felt super body high. And I remember closing my eyes and seeing like an unimaginable number of fractals, like a kaleidoscope that just times 1,000, just changing before my eyes. And then it all kind of morphed into these two sort of almost silhouettes with light behind them, that it was almost a feeling of like the silhouettes grew upwards with bright light directly behind them. So like two big shadowy figures, like they grew upwards at the same time that I went forward. And it was just this sucking feeling, like we're going to suck you through this portal of light. And of course, you know, I had talked to Phil and read some things about that's sort of the blast off point if you ingest it in that way.
Gateway,
and so it's like I went to that level and was kind of like, and this was years ago, and I just wasn't interested in revisiting it. It didn't necessarily scare me, but it was interesting. And at that time, on that day, I was like, okay, that's enough for me now. And I just kind of never went back. And I don't know if I will or not, but I'm definitely familiar with that suck-in feeling of like, and I remember opening my eyes and being like, whoa, if I didn't open my eyes just then, I would have been gone, like not gone dead or anything, but like I would have been entering the dream, the dream world, you know. And it just me choosing consciously to be like, oh, I'll just open my eyes now and be in the room again, was like cut it off. And so that I just had a little taste where I was like, okay, I see how this kind of. So that the whole idea of like the mountain and the lion and stuff like that, I think it's also really interesting that you saw what I would refer to as like the ancestral DNA. Because that's a big thing that I believe in, like that there's this, I say it all the time, and me and Alessandra talk about it, that like it's amazing that we're attached to this line of human beings, like regardless of creation, evolution, how it all got started. Had any one of them made any other choices not to produce the next in the lineage, you know, neither her nor I would be here, nor would any of us be here, you know? So it's so interesting that, of course, there's ancestral DNA, and sometimes I almost feel like it's our purpose in life that you're here to like overcome what your lineage, what your line hasn't, like you're the next try at the same trials of life that your forefathers had, your foremothers, if you want to get real politically correct, if you just got to have it that way. But like you're the next go, and you can ancestrally, I believe, you can heal things for your whole lineage by correcting them in your lifetime and not passing them on. Whether you believe that, because I'm kind of starting to believe that maybe time is just a concept, it's just a measurement, you know, and it's not necessarily, I have this thought, like if you scale anything up big enough, then you can see the beginning and the end. It just looks like a single point. So how can you diversify a single point, a blip, into this massive long timeline? It just depends on your scale, right? So it's just interesting that you saw that flow, because that's something, and we'll definitely talk more, I'm sure, the more episodes we record about things like that, because that's like a core truth that I'm interested in understanding more about, and like getting in touch with, like what is, I think you can tap in different ways. Not, I don't know how mystical I want to get with it, but you look deep inside yourself, you can understand things about your lineage. There's DNA like knowledge built into us. And I don't know if you guys would agree. You're the ayahuasca guys, so I mean, you probably tap into some of that.
I mean, I think so.
Into levels of your body that you didn't even know existed. But it's like, because they're buried in your core, like the creation of how you exist, you know, and of all your ancestors who put in work and effort and trials and tribulations to produce you, like their bodies morphed and changed and evolved, and then they produced the next one, and that one grew, and it had its own trials, and all that's buried in the same little spark
lives within you
that lit you off.
I mean, dude, the genetic, the DNA double helix structure is so long, and we only know a tiny fraction of what it actually encodes. And then with stuff like epigenetics, where you can activate new DNA genetic sequences within your body by the trials and tribulations that you impose on yourself, it's like, dude, who knows what the limits are to it?
Right.
And then even you talking about the trials that your lineage or your ancestors have gone through, it's like history repeats itself. There's a reason we say that. I was listening to Peterson yesterday, and he was talking about rats, and he said that this scientist discovered that if you take these baby rats away from their mothers and make them like only be raised by males, like when those rats get older, if they're females, they'll have like these I'm going to butcher how he said it, but it's like they'll have these issues on the feminine side. Like they won't be as good of mothers because they don't have that experience or that woven into their DNA. So it just, again, kind of talking about the trials and tribulations that are woven into your DNA, and what your ancestors dealt with has probably been handed down to you in some way. So you might even argue that some of our neuroses, or like maybe like for me, like experiencing a lot of depression in my mid to late 20s, like I'm probably a person that was predisposed to that in some way throughout my lineage, and I don't know much beyond like I knew my great grandfather, but beyond that, I'm very lucky to even had a few years with him. But beyond that, I don't know who my family was,
same, really.
Ventures, what our medical history was, what we expected. Did we have a traumatic like death in the family, or like weird stuff like that kind of like imprints on you, especially like children. It's like stuff imprints, and I'm sure we all have memories from childhood where like
even
fucked up shit happened
or
to
even
us,
hundreds of years back. Like some families were bankers, some were farmers, some were like smiths, carpenters. These,
well, that's why our last names are those things.
All those different things. It's like, and you wonder why some people have a tendency to trend towards certain maybe lines of work. It's not all just socially constructed. There's deeper levels, and so that's why I think ayahuasca is so interesting. Because there's these deeper levels that psychedelics in general really can take you to these levels that it's like you can write it off as a trip if you want to. I really don't care how people look at it. Like, you look at it how you want to. So if you want to write it off as a trip and as drugs and whatever, that's fine too. But there's no other way to go into that world that exists in our consciousness that we know of. There's no other way to go into that waking dream state and have these intense visuals and exploration, a whole other entities and stories and information. Like, everyone has said that they've been overwhelmed with information, that like you learn, like Phil was saying, there was so many secrets of the universe, but it was like, I can't bring it all back, but I can feel the understanding.
That's why I kept
repeating,
repeating, I understand. I can't tell you guys anything that they taught me, but I was just like, I understand. It was just a wealth of information. Yeah. But I mean, I believe that there are entryways. I think that you can work yourself into a state of being to where you don't have to ingest something. Like Rick Strassman talked about that in his book, and he was like, dude, he believed that the pineal gland has a concentrated dose of DMT, and even Wim Hof talks about that. Like, I was going to bring up Wim Hof. You can pull up videos on YouTube right now where Wim Hof there's some podcaster, and he gets the guy to do like 3 rounds of breathing exercises, and the guy's like, I started seeing kaleidoscopic patterns, and I could see the tunnel, and Wim's just like, you're tripping, man. He's like, that's what happens. And so it's like, and even Ben Greenfield says that he's like that when you do the final Wim Hof hold. So you exhale and you don't breathe, but then when you're done holding your breath, you do a deep inhale, and then you put pressure up into your dome piece. And Ben Greenfield talks about how that like pressure of the oxygen can trigger something within your pineal to cause you to trip. So it's like, I think the gateway lies within us, but maybe it's been lost on us through ancestry or however the culture has
Yeah.
steered. It's like we've gotten
How we
away
live our
from-
lives now
Yeah,
is
yeah.
kind of detached from
We've
maybe
gotten
those
away,
ideas.
and I would say we've gotten away from primal zero. Like to me,
okay.
that there's nothing more primal than connecting with your ancestors and the higher power, whether that's God, whether it's a motherly God, whether it's a fatherly God, whatever it is. There's always something outside of you that you don't quite understand, and so to me, that's what the primal zero is connecting
Also,
back with that.
Alex Jones has said he's had experiences, and the kids used to do. I knew kids that did this too, where they would choke each other out.
Yeah,
and
I
make
did
you
that as
pass
a
out.
kid.
And he's told on air before of like being choked out on purpose, and then having these like waking dreams where he felt like he lived a whole life, all this, and he saw his children die of famine in like old England and all this stuff, and then he like woke up from it and was like, "Whoa, how long was I out?" And they're like.
Yeah.
20 seconds,
Yep.
30 seconds. And he
Yep.
like just felt, so there's these interesting gateways that it's not always, there's things we can release internally clearly. And that's why people talk about with death, that there's this release at death that takes you
Yeah.
through the gateway and things too. So,
Yeah.
but before we go too deep into that, does anybody want to say anything else that's relevant about your experience under the effects of ayahuasca? You want to add anything to your visually what you saw, what was interesting?
Yeah, I mean,
gave
just
pretty much everything I could remember about it.
Yeah.
I mean, just the diet or whatever. We were going to talk, about the chemical is called tyramine,
Oh, okay.
and it's it's an amino acid that is in like avocados and bananas or like aged meat, aged cheeses.
Oh, okay.
Anything
That's why they
aged.
say no red meat. Then.
And does that
okay?
counteract or does it poison you?
It can increase your heart rate,
Oh,
as can ayahuasca. So,
gotcha.
and I've heard it also can cause gut pain and stuff like that. So,
Gotcha.
So, what would you say, Phil? We'll start with you. What would you say? We'll just sum it up in one category. Like, where have you taken it since? Yours was actually more recent too. So, where have you taken it? Not like, hey man, did you achieve your goals, but spiritually, mentally, where did it take you since you had your trip? What's the journey been like? Immediately after when you get home, all the way up into like present day. Like, what are the takeaways? Let's almost think about it like somebody else is coming to you, maybe even me. I don't know that I'm gonna plan on ever trying ayahuasca. Who knows? I just leave it open ended. But if I'm like, what's the point, man? What are the takeaways? And some of it, you don't have to get all personal or whatever, or you can say whatever you want. But what are the life lessons that come from an experience like that you found?
other than getting a generator,
Besides when they came to you and
Get
said,
a Kentuckan generator.
you will
Get a-
need a generator.
you will need a Kentuckan generator. I bet the Texans
if the power
they
goes
wish
out,
they had a
shall
generator.
have no lights,
That
no
was
heat.
that was a prediction. That was like, man,
Yeah.
these Texans. I wish they were watching this podcast.
Yeah, no, I mean, you make a really good point. You make a really good point.
So besides
Gosh, that was timely.
timely,
Yeah.
so besides having a generator, it's just more about like,
Did it work for you?
yeah,
I mean,
it worked for me. It's like
okay.
it helps you see a different perspective. Like for instance, you've got, what is this? So you got oh man, you've got these inmates in Brazil. There was like high violent inmates. They're like, well, shit, maybe let's see what happens if we give them ayahuasca. I mean, they're on death row anyways.
Yeah.
Why not? And some of them were like reporting like, what was it? Like euphoric, like I understand my wrong in what I had done, like as far as like murdering someone or whatever.
Yeah.
But where before they felt totally justified or whatever it was. And so it seemed like they were kind of reformed or rehabilitated from the ayahuasca experiences. And so like what I found with myself is that I did feel like it was like a peeling of an onion. There's layers to the onion. So I did feel like there were some layers of the onion that got pulled off. But then like within a few weeks, I had realized I have so many more layers to remove before I'm where I want to be.
Yeah. But it did. So would you say that it sort of broke you through, into a new it sets you off into a new process. Like you're talking about peeling layers. Like it peeled the initial layers, and now you in your own life recognize these things where you're like, now I understand what I can work on because of it brought you some sort of peace or understanding through that experience.
For sure.
Gotcha.
For sure. Yeah. Like, there's like love and approval for people in your life that may have wronged you, and love and approval for yourself when you may have wronged others. Those are the sorts of things where it's like, you've done some things like, or some things have been done to you, but how do you want to live from now until you die?
Interesting.
That being aside, things have been done to you. You've done things. What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to live? These sorts of questions. I was like, well, I want to live.
Time to start answering them, basically.
Yeah, I want to live a great life. I want to be a great person to people.
Yeah.
It's like some people talk about, people don't remember necessarily like what you did or who you are, blah blah blah, but they remember how you made them feel.
Right. I've heard that,
and
it's true.
That's important.
It's
because it makes sense to me. Like I think about people like and remembering them. I'm like, well, I remember how they made me feel. Like whether they made me feel like heard or listened to or
pissed off,
valuable, pissed off, or taken advantage of, or different various feelings.
Yeah.
Positive, negative, and that sort of thing. And so, I was like, well, I could be someone who makes people, feel good about the memories we had together, and if that hasn't been the case, perhaps I can, say that's just like, I don't know. Sometimes I think about it as water, like maybe it's clear water and you're adding red to it, and the more red color you add to it, the darker it gets,
Yeah.
You might be like way clear or whatever it is, or if you're trying to make it clear, then maybe you have a lot of work ahead of you, but eventually it will, the relationship will get to where you want it to be if you just invest in it.
Chris, what are the takeaways from ayahuasca?
Perspective change was my main thing. It was like ayahuasca allowed me to see myself in a different light and then carry that throughout my life and kind of be able to look at myself almost on a daily basis. I mean, because I'm the type of person that I like to think all the time, and I analyze what I do and how I spoke to people, and even like the last time I saw Phil, I was like trying to say a joke and it came off like really bad, and Phil looked over at Alex and was just like, how do I? And I was like, I felt guilty, so in my head I'm like, dude, don't say stupid shit like that, but I'm just trying to be funny, right? So I already have that.
But what was my perspective on it?
You were totally chill about it.
I was like, dude, I hardly even remember that comment.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, and so that's that's me analyzing my actions and stuff, and in the past, and I would be extremely judgmental of myself and my actions, and I still am, but I'm also way more forgiving, and I think ayahuasca showed me that, because that was the Jesus thing. Like, I'll wait for you. Like, it's okay, dude. Like, you are forgiven. That's a deep message. And so I think for me, it was a perspective shift from being like a tyrannical, judgmental father on everything that I do, every piece of artwork that I produce, every conversation that I had, every time I tried to pick up a guitar and play a song and sucked at it, or whatever it was,
Yeah.
I slowly started to shift after ayahuasca to a more forgiving state of mind. And I analyze and I want to improve. I want to be better. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, that's okay. It's okay to be a buffoon sometimes and say dumb shit or do stupid stuff. So I think that was my main thing, was like I came back and had a complete perspective shift, which is what I needed, because my perspective on the world was very tiny and narrow and negative at the time. And then ayahuasca blew that wide open for me. But it's like Phil said, it just gets you into the layers of the onion, and then you realize, dude, the layers go and go and go, man. It's like, the work is never done.
Right.
And that's okay too. It's like, dude, that's what it's all about. That's the journey of life. Like, I mean, that's
Doing
like
the work.
we live in a universe, like, and I think I probably stole this from Alan Watts or something, but it's like we live in a universe, but it's also the university of lice, the university of lice.
I'm itchy.
Yeah. The university of life. Like, that's why you were put on this earth, you know, incarnate. Like, even Ava asked me before, like, well, why did we have to come down
She's
from
like,
heaven?
why do
like,
you exist?
Yeah.
And you're like, jeez.
Hey, man, don't be so judgmental on me. You know, it's like, why did we have to fall from the garden? It's like, well, if we always existed in Eden, like, that's all you would know. You would eventually get bored of that. If everything's perfect, if the roads are golden, it's pearly gates, all that stuff, all those metaphors we've heard, it's like, dude, you're not understanding what it feels like to be limited and what it feels like to be a human incarnate. So your job while you're here is to come down here and experience. And then if you do get to go to a place like heaven, then you're going to have an immense wealth of appreciation for that experience, because you've gone through the fire and flames, which is life, all the suffering that life entails. Like, everybody's going to suffer. I mean, that's why it's such that's a huge dictum in the Buddhist philosophy, is like, everything is suffering, dude.
Yeah.
And it's because you're striving for things.
Yeah.
That's
like,
what your desires cause
people
you
say
to suffer.
life is at its core is suffering.
Yeah.
And then Buddha says, like, enlightenment is not suffering. And it's like, you didn't tell me what enlightenment was. You just told me what it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So I mean, my takeaway from your experience, and of course, I've been along for the ride. Like, I've known you guys well since before you did these things, and when you were considering it, and we've talked about it, you know, ad infinitum of these type of things, and I've heard your experiences and all that stuff, and it's always interesting to hear again, honestly. But and I've had my takeaway just from your two, like, when you were on ayahuasca, I think it's interesting that you both saw something related with, like, the souls and the lineage, and you know, like, you saw the grid of souls dropping down, and Chris saw, like, sort of the flow of time where he felt like he could pick pieces out of, like, you know, the entire lineage of existence and things like that. And I think that's kind of, it ties into what we're talking about with, how can I connect it all together? I think recognizing that in yourself is one of the most important things that helps you let go. It's like the release of the ego. It's like, yes, you're here and now, but there was all the versions, if you want to call them, of you or from your lineage that were also present, and they were here and now at some point. And their here and now existed just like your here and now exists for you right now. It wasn't, oh, but their here and now was in the past. It's like, no, they lived in the present, and so do you. And that's why you can kind of think of time as not linear in a certain sense. And so it's just very interesting to me that that's something that you guys experience is connected very strongly on, like, in imagery. And that is, once you see that, you realize, like, that release of ego, where sure, you did go on the experience, I feel like, because of ego. That's why we all do everything, but not because you had a big one, because you recognized a problem with yours in some way, whether your ego was the thing that makes you depressed or it makes you overconfident. It doesn't matter what side of the scale you're on. And so, yeah, I think it's that release. And I kind of remember where I was going with this too, was that there's many things, I think, why people get judgmental of, like, drugs. There's many things that, like, can get you to that understanding. Some people are just raised in a way where they're let know, hey, we worked really hard to get you here. Here's what this family has done. Here's what we've always done. And it has not been an easy road. And, like, they respect that history, and they live this life of, maybe they were shown compassion in a way. Like, there's other ways to learn it, just like you can tap into that dimensional state without drugs or psychedelics.
Yeah, meditation alone or whatever.
Meditation, whatever. Or just life lessons. You might have had an experience, a near-death experience. You might have just had good parents, or, like, a good, nice brother who, like, went through a lot of hard stuff and showed you. So it's not like you can't learn these lessons any other way.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting how it's, or even through religion. I think a lot of that's why the religious things, because like we're all trying to explore this core truth, and it's not just, while psychedelics might show you a whole different world, the knowledge is like within us, you know? And so there's many different ways to get to it.
Yeah.
I do think psychedelics is one way to like, oh, you want the knowledge? Let me pull back the veil for you and like let you let go of everything that's reality and really show you. But I also think people who just strive really hard in life and recognize, and I think that's why this is, again, all my opinion. I think that's why it transitions, like you guys are saying. And I know I've been there in my life and still am, where you realize these things about yourself and realize I got to let go of these things so that I can kind of like drop those weights. So I could, like Phil was saying about the financial block, he's got to drop the weights that are keeping him where he's at so that he can progress forward. And it's all about whether that single experience or it takes a lifetime of torture or whatever to make you let go. It's all about that letting go of the judgment and deciding that you're going to do what in your core values, you're going to do what represents those things and how you can manifest that in this reality, you know? So
like in the Japanese tradition, they talk about there's growth through pain, which is kinsho, and then there's growth through insight, which is satori. And the growth through pain is a lot more traumatic and fast and abrupt, while the growth through insight, satori, is more of like a slow burn over time. And that sort of thing. And so sometimes, you can have these moments where, you learn some life lessons along the way, but then other times, like somebody's like horribly hurt you, or you've hurt somebody, and then that causes the massive growth in you that you start getting your priorities in check or whatever it is. What I was thinking about when you said, you described like the soul channel and that sort of thing, it reminded me of, this clip from The Good Place. It's called the Time Knife.
I've never seen the movie.
I mean, we could cut a clip into the video, but it's an interesting clip where it's like kind of described what you were talking about, where it was like this stream of time and events, and almost like a fourth dimensional knowledge. Like if you have like the three dimensions are like, like height, width, and length, that sort of thing. And then fourth dimension is time.
Right.
So then time would be the knowledge of all three-dimensional spaces, from birth to death and that sort of thing. Or perhaps maybe multiple lives of birth and death. And and then fifth dimensional would be like multiple universes of timelines. And and then have you seen the I don't know how many dimensions it is, like 12 or some shit, and there was like a video like describing each of the dimensions, and
I think I've watched something on that before, but I don't remember much about it because that stuff kind of gets lost on me, because it's like, dude, I'm a limited cognitive processor. It's like I need to concern myself with the first four, because that's the world that I live in.
Yeah,
like
for
if
sure.
I want to get deep into philosophizing about it, sure. But most of the time I'm like, dude, that's all cool and all, but then it's all, if it's theoretical or whatever, or you guys are slamming quarks into each other to figure this shit out, like that's all cool. But I kind of just want to know about space and time. That's it. That's all I need to know about, because that's where my material body exists.
Yeah. And it's interesting, well, just to play off the quarks idea. I mean, it's certainly interesting to understand how the universe works, but I've always thought of it as like, as far out as the universe expands outside of our realm of sort of what we can touch and feel and see, I think it expands almost the same depth inside of yourself. However you want to think about that. Like, and that's what I feel like psychedelics reveal, is like the universe within. And it's like, if you want a little taste of like, sure, you can look up into the stars and be amazed at how small you are, but you can look into yourself and see how vast the expanse is.
Yeah.
And there's lessons to be learned from both, which is, again, I don't think anyone here would like is a cheerleader for ayahuasca. Like, everyone should do it. It's all a personal thing. Like,
I think you either do it if you're called to do it.
Yes, you reach that step where the next step for you or you don't, and that's it. But regardless, I think you go into it like what you guys were saying. You go into it looking, seeking, and being at peace with, you know, what's going to transpire.
Sure.
And then you'll take a nice little journey to the center of your own universe and hopefully learn something. So anybody got anything else to add? Because I think this has been probably one of the most interesting podcasts so far.
Okay.
I'm really happy with it. If anybody wants to drop any lines here at the end, though, I mean, I open up the floor to any final words.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
It's been quite an experience.
I said my piece. I can maybe riff off what you just said. I like the idea of the expansiveness within you. And I think that you can meet people in life, or there are people who can experience that expansiveness without psychedelics. Like, I think that's totally a possibility. I think just for some of us, there's blockages from trauma, or it's our ego, or whatever it is. There's something holding you back from realizing that there is so much more going on in the world and in the universe than you can possibly conceive of. And if that's true, then on some level, you can begin to understand that there's way more going on within your psyche and within your heart than you can possibly conceive of at any given time. But if you take the time to start to sort it out and organize your life, and then also organize your thoughts and organize your feelings, take stock of who you are, then I think you can really begin to
manifest.
Really.
Create. We can become creators.
Even though I don't like any of that, those new age thoughts like that, but they make sense on a lot of levels. Like I just meet people who try and use that as an out for getting what they want in life. And it's like, well,
and maybe
dude,
they get a little too mystical with it, and you're like,
gets a
bro,
little-
what are you even doing in real life to make it
But
happen?
absolutely,
though? You
I
don't just
mean,
get to dream it up and it becomes.
Because
you
I
know,
totally
you gotta put in the work.
I totally believe that it's up to each individual human being to manifest the reality that they want. And I do believe that you strive for the best ideal that you can manifest on this earth. And the word that we use for that is heaven. Whatever heaven looks like to you, it's your responsibility to try and manifest that in the world. So, and I think you do that by taking stock, looking deep within yourself, seeing the vastness of space that is within you, but also without you too, which is, that's like an esoteric teaching of Jesus. It's like, dude, as within, as without, or as above, so below. So it's
also
like
the Illuminati.
Yep. How do you do that?
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I should probably start saying this at the beginning of the video, but we need likes, subscribes, and everything in between.
Notifications.
Comments. Turn on notifications. Argue with me in the comments about something. Insult the way somebody looks in the comments.
Yeah,
you know
I'd love
what I'm
to be
saying?
insulted. Go to my YouTube channel. I'm just going to shameless plug here, Goats in a Pond, and go insult me in the comments.
Gosh,
That's
just
fun.
get on to this guy.
I'm making a bunch of dumb videos about Toyota Tundras and 4Runners.
Let's brigade somebody.
If you want to learn more about ayahuasca, how to do it, legally in America, you can go to peacefulmountainway.org.
There you go.
And learn more about it there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to episode 7. We'll see you on the next one. Nice.
Well done.
Solid freaking episode.
Fun. I thoroughly enjoyed that.